Hey everyone, and welcome back to the VeChain Foundation research on carbon emissions and carbon credits. Today we have Tayler McCracken from Coin Bureau. Tayler, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks again for inviting me back on for another chat. So as Justin just said, I am work for the Coin Bureau. I'm one of the researchers and an analyst there. I've been there for a couple of years. Prior to the Coin Bureau, I've worked in blockchain investigation. I was a quality control analyst for a couple of different crypto companies as well. And I'm currently the editor of the Coin Bureau website. So, but I understand the topic that we're going to talk about today is about, climate change. Sorry if I just kind of jumped in front of you there and introduced the topic before you got to.
Hey, go into it. It's your show. It's your world.
But I was going to say the one thing I'm absolutely not, though, is an expert in climate change. So, I'm happy to kind of share my opinions and my views of it, but I'll be the first to admit that I am not the most educated on the subject. I do spend a lot of time listening to people who are far more intelligent than me discuss this topic and form some ideas and opinions that way. So I do have some thoughts and questions to share, but by no means do I consider myself an expert on this. And by no means do I even have necessarily an opinion one way or another. So I know this is quite a controversial topic. But yeah, so I'm just saying, what I hear and what I feel. But I'm always happy to be proven wrong and have my mind changed. So, yeah.
All right. So let's get into it. So I know one of the first things that we want to delve into, one of the things that we're researching is the whole idea of organizations tracking carbon emissions on the blockchain. I know that we briefly spoke about Deborah Dole's interview, right? That was even eye-opening to me, and I talk a lot, so actually I was a little bit speechless on some of the things that she talked about. So what are your thoughts on organizations tracking carbon emissions and having their things their information being transparent on the blockchain?
So I think it's a good idea to be aware of our impact on the environment, obviously, without a doubt. But one of the things that Deborah brought up, and I think she really nailed it, is it's incredibly difficult to do, and it's something that I think we're going to waste more resources trying to do it than we'll actually be able to successfully complete it. So one of the issues right off the bat is there's no globally agreed standard on these carbon credit, like they're how they're issued and how we're even tracking carbon. So I'm going to kind of steal a bit from what Deborah was saying here, but she brought up a really good point when she was saying, if we want to track the carbon emissions from a supply chain from point A to point B, there are a lot of things happening between point A to point B, right? So say we're hauling livestock, and we have to know, what fertilizer did we use for that cow to eat? How far did we have to walk that cow from point A to point B to get it on the truck? How many man hours were involved? What about the factory that raises the cow? Do they leave their lights on overnight? What kind of an energy grid are they using? And then when we get the actual animal on the truck, what kind of truck is it? What's its engine? Is it something that is fuel efficient? So there are so many little checkpoints along the way, and then that truck gets to the destination, and say it goes into a slaughterhouse. The slaughterhouse, again, like, what kind of light bulbs are they using? Are they just all these other kind of these data points to use? And then we have to get that cow then to the grocery store, then to the human's plate. And so if you kind of think about all those little checkpoints along the way, if we're actually going to go and measure the carbon footprint for every stop along that journey, I'm like, that is an awful lot of resources and manpower. And I think we're going to end up using we're going to be using more resources and possibly even contributing to a worse carbon footprint, just trying to track the journey from field to plate. So I do think that's quite an issue. Yeah, sorry, was that your question?
Yeah, that was the question, and you have a good point in terms of the tracking and tracing, how the tracking and tracing may be an issue. So that's just the effort in tracking and tracing it. How are we going to get it on the blockchain? How are we going to get every single one of those business partners to publish or write that information to, the blockchain? And, yes, we talked about how, the IoT devices may be able to track that, but that's just one piece of it. That's just logistical portion of it. We're not talking about the, the information that needs to be tracked by the farmers. And what about the methane, the cows, releasing to the atmosphere and things like that?
Exactly. Do we need to start like measuring cows' farts and putting that in a scoring credit system as well? So it's also, and I do think that blockchain has a really powerful potential for supply chain tracking. Like we were talking about how they use it during the rollout of the vaccines to track. So I think blockchain can be really useful for tracking the journey from point A to point B, as far as it can relay data such as temperature and location and how long it was stored at these certain checkpoints. And I think things like that, it's quite useful to put those on a digital ledger and use blockchain. But as far as actually tracking the emissions that's going on in the process, I'm just not sure if we're quite there yet.
All right, got it. I appreciate that. So that's step one. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's step one.
So in another step, what's your thoughts of tracking, carbon credits on the blockchain?
So carbon credits is another hot topic too, right? And so I'm going to pull from some notes here, but I think the carbon credit idea, for anybody who doesn't know, it has been shown to be just quite corrupt in its own nature. So it was the idea for them was first kind of rolled out during the Tokyo Accord in 1995, and the UN did a study. God, if I could just read my own notes here. The UN ended up doing a study that just basically showed over 75% of the carbon credits issued. There was basically they were issued and nobody knows what even happened with them. Like, they just kind of went into the ether and they just disappeared. So over 75% actually had no impact whatsoever. And then what's even worse than that is they know that Russia and the Ukraine were basically using carbon credits for wash trading. And they were actually like gamifying the system. So one of the things that Russia was caught doing was, again with my notes, I write like a doctor. So basically what Russia was doing is they were changing the requirements. So again, this goes back to the fact that there's no agreed issuance of doing this. There's no like globally agreed way of doing it. So basically what Russia decided to do is they were taking out the CFC and the HFCS, which are greenhouse gases. They were taking these checks out in 2011. And then basically they were releasing carbon credits, buying them back. And then they were saying that they were taking the CFCs and the HCFSs out of the environment. And basically what this was allowing to do was it was allowing companies to increase their carbon outputs, and because they weren't tracking the harmful portions of it, right? So I'm not really smart enough to even understand what all that means. But yeah, so basically they were just gamifying the system. They were making millions. And I want to give credit to there's a really brilliant YouTube video from Belinda Carr, and she basically pulls up 10 key instances that has been verified how the carbon credits system has been quite corrupt. And I think I'm not going to go through her whole video, but I think one of my favorite things that she really kind of puts it into the ground is she brings up a use case of an oil tanker. It's a French company. And basically what they're doing is they're pulling natural gas to the ground in Australia, hauling it over to China. And, that's using a hell of a lot of carbon. And then what they did is they turned around and they invested in a 10-year-old wind farm in China. And then all of a sudden they were claiming that they were net carbon zero. And she's like, I'm sorry. She's like, having wind power does not directly translate to offsetting carbon. She's like, those are two very different things. They're like, you released a lot of carbon into the air, and just by investing into a wind farm, that's not negating the damage that was done. So one of my biggest personal issues with these carbon credits is we're basically allowing companies to pollute more if they're willing to buy these credits. And we already know that these credits are going towards tree farms where the trees aren't even being planted in some cases. There's been a couple companies get in trouble for that. They're claiming they're planting trees that they're not. And legally, these trees can be cut down after 10 years. So say you're dumping loads of carbon into the atmosphere and you're buying these carbon credits or going to planting trees, and all of a sudden they can just cut these trees down after 10 years. So I kind of think this is similar to if you've got a bucket full of water and you're punching a bunch of holes in the bucket and then you're patching the holes. And it's like, well, wouldn't it have just been better if you didn't punch the holes in the bucket in the first place? If you truly cared about the environment, you shouldn't just be basically, it's almost like a form of bribery. It's a way of paying these companies extra money to just let you pollute as much as you want. So I think the carbon credits are a bit of it is a bit of a scam. Something else that actually Deborah has, she makes a really good point in her note as well, is again, the lack of global standards. So Delta Airline pays $2.30 per ton for their carbon emissions. Microsoft pays $20 per ton and million, and Bill Gates pays 600 million. So it's like, so why is Bill Gates having to pay far more than say Delta? So like if we're all polluting in the same way, then why isn't there more of a standard across the board? So there's just a lot of there's just too many inconsistencies for my liking. And the fact that people are speculating on these as well really kind of bothers me. It's if our goal is to do what's better for the planet, then why are we using carbon credits as a speculative asset as well? We're using them to buy, trade, sell, profit from. Like ultimately, these bloody things are being used to invest and buy, sell them. So I'm like, so you're not really caring about the problem. You're caring about using these carbon credits as another speculative asset. And furthermore is it kind of ties into this ESG narrative as well. And it's politics and corporations that are trying to dictate the way that we're supposed to be healing the planet, right? And I'm like, and the majority of these are for-profit companies and enterprises that are trying to play by this set of rules. And for me personally, I'm like, if I sit down in a room with 50 scientists who understand the way the planet works, and they've studied the environment, things like that, and if they tell me, they're like, this is what's best for the environment, I'm going to be inclined to believe them. But a bunch of men in business suits from companies and for-profit corporations trying to tell me, hey, we can fix the planet, while simultaneously padding their bank accounts. That raises some red flags for me, because they're not doing things if it's not in their best interest, right? And that's fun. Money is always the bottom line. So I'm skeptical of the entities that are behind these narratives as well. And it's not just me sounding like a crazy person here. I mean, there's been a few states in the US who have openly rallied against this, ESG investment movement as well. And the governor of Florida is he's actually proposing like anti-ESG bills and things like that. Because it's just been shown to be a flawed model. So I'm not saying that nothing needs to be done about it, but I don't think carbon credits are the way to go. Maybe carbon offsets could be an idea, but again, these are questions for people way smarter than me to kind of figure out.
Okay, how do they say it? How do they say it? Shots fired.
Just one humble man's opinion. Crazy rant on the internet. Yeah, that's it.
But so I actually got, I think I got that. So exposing the carbon credit and offset scam, is that the one from Belinda Carr? Because there's two of them.
Yeah. Belinda Carr, she puts it far more eloquently than I do, but yeah, she just basically has one called carbon credit scam. And even if you just Google carbon credit scam, there's a lot of really good and like I said, and it's not even just theories. It's like the UN has found this through their investigations and things like that, the vast majority of these things aren't doing what they claim to do. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. And I don't know if it was set up. I mean, I would imagine it was set up with good intentions, but it's just, like anything, it's been gamified. I mean, and people will do it with everything, right? Like I'm a big fan of this one crypto app where you basically get crypto for walking, and people hook it up to a drill and just spin a drill and they just get free. And so it's like this app came out with good intentions. Like, let's get people fit. Let's get people moving. And this guy's like, no, it was Sweatcoin. And this guy's like, I'm just going to hook it up to a drill. And it's like, so people are always going to find ways to mess with the system, right?
Yeah, I still get notifications from Sweatcoin like 3 times a day about things, So, but you mentioned that. So you mentioned that that there could be a potential solution for carbon offsets. Can you expand on that one a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. So again, I'm far from an expert in the space, but basically there is a difference between carbon credits and carbon offsets. And carbon credits is basically paying more so you can pollute more in a sense, and you can basically trade these things. So if you have extra carbon credits left over, sell them, whatever. But what carbon offsets are is actually trying to have more of like a direct impact. So you can capture methane and you can use that for fuel. And just do things like lower energy usage and invest in renewable energy and things like that. So it's things that more have like a direct impact. So companies can actually say, instead of using the electricity, we're now going to move to solar panel. And there are benefits and incentives in place to do things like that. But I think some of the most impactful ones, again, we've seen with Bitcoin miners. So, they're taking flare gas that would just otherwise be wasted and sent in the atmosphere, polluting as well. And so instead of that just going to the atmosphere, Bitcoin miners are now actually able to grab that. And that would be a form of carbon offsetting, because they're offsetting what would be polluting and they're putting it to use to create Bitcoin. A lot of people do with things like methane is a big one for various different uses. So I think I think what's might happen with carbon that I would quite like to see is maybe not even try and reduce it, maybe just find an alternate use for it. Like, so instead of just letting it go into the air and pollute, let's capture and let's do something with it. Because I mean, you and I are carbon, plastic is carbon. So instead of just wasting it, let's maybe find a use for it. I mean, again, these are questions and things for other people to kind of figure out. But yeah, so it's kind of my 2 cents is let's resolve the problem, not just throw money at it, right? And just to go on another little bit of a tangent here is I do think by us trying to use blockchain technology, you're getting too much enjoyment out of this. So there's an old cliche that talks about putting the horse before the buggy, right? And I think blockchain has a tendency to that as well. So I'm a huge fan of blockchain technology. I think it can do some incredible things. But I think one of the things that VeChain is trying to do is solve a problem that we don't even understand yet. There's no scientific consensus on what the problem actually is. And, when we think about climate change, so many people, they just default to, yeah, the Earth's getting hotter. But it's actually a very complex, multifaceted problem. It's So, they stopped calling it global warming, now it's climate change. And it's like, are we looking at this from a precipitation perspective? Are we talking about this from a temperature perspective? Because in different parts of the world, there's all sorts of different things going on. There's flooding in one area and droughts in other, like we've never seen before. We're breaking high temperatures, low temperatures, and there's a lot more going on than just heating. And one thing that worries me about this is when the scientific community can't come up to with a consensus. I'm like, how can we understand what's going on or try and solve it when we can't even agree on what the problem is? So I meant to grab the name of an interesting TED Talk, but basically there was a guy that was studying our impact on the environment. I'll get the name to you after this. And basically he made a very revolutionary discovery. And he actually found that one of the problems is just the fact that we are corralling livestock and keeping them in one area. So he did an experiment in Africa where he was actually like, let's just let livestock just roam freely. And that was his solution. And the effects were quite incredible, really. So basically, because the animals were walking and they were, their feces and their urine were spreading all over, it completely regenerated areas of the desert where they thought it's too arid, nothing can grow and so it's, a lot of scientists are like, we need less cows, less cattle, less methane. And this guy's well, wait a minute. He's like, I just put this in real profit or in real practice. He's like, I just put more cows, more methane, more livestock in the fields, and it's actually regenerating the planet and regenerating greenery and stuff. So I think the thing with climate change is it's like, we need a consensus. We need to understand the problem before we can tackle it. So whether or not crypto or blockchain is the solution, I don't know. But I heard something that I quite liked the other day, and I kind of related to this issue here is they're talking about blockchain gaming, and they're saying that one of the problems with crypto is, well, and blockchain in general, is we do have the potential to solve so many problems, but maybe we're not the right people to be doing it. So he's talking about like crypto gaming, and the reason why crypto gaming is so cool crap. He's like, because it's people in crypto trying to create video games. It's the wrong way around. He's like, the video game community doesn't need crypto. Crypto needs the video game community to adopt it. And I kind of think about that with what VeChain is trying to do as well. It's first and foremost, they're a technology company. What do they know about climate change? I mean, maybe they know a lot, and I know that they do some work with the UN, and I'm sure they've got some brilliant advisors on board. But I think crypto's focus should be on, well, blockchain, sorry, is they should just be building the tools and, you know, the potential. And then basically it's existing industry should be integrating blockchain into what they do. So ideally, what I would like to see is, again, I want to see this initiative to save the world should be led from an academic and a scientific perspective. It shouldn't be being ran from the UN, from politicians, from businesses, corporations. It shouldn't be a blockchain company. So, you know, I'd like to see if the scientific community realizes, they're like, hey, we can use blockchain technology to help with our goal, then great. But I do find it a bit weird that it's VeChain being like, hey, let's save the planet. And it's like, well, wait, you guys are a crypto company. Like, yeah. So I think it might be a bit skewed. So yeah, just need to understand the problem, I think, first and foremost.
Interesting. So you brought up a good point, and it made me think of another thing in terms of. So you said that the cow TED Talk, and I want to get that one, by the way.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
That one sounds great. But so you said it was regenerating, you know, the areas, you know, the arid areas. So what's your thoughts on this whole refi movement we're starting to hear about within the Web3 space? And my follow-up question is going to be based on your response.
Okay, no. I mean, I think that, again, it's the intentions, I guess, and now I'm just going to completely contradict myself, because I like to see it. I do. I kind of give a pretty corny answer, but when people ask me what my favorite blockchain project is, I often say whatever one's trying to have the best impact on the planet. So I mean, I'll get behind any blockchain project that seems like they can make life better. They can make, you know, the world better, which I realize that's kind of contradicting what I've just previously said about why are crypto companies trying to do everything. But I mean, I think it's a good first step. And so, yeah, if a crypto company thinks maybe they can take a crack at something and they can make the world a better place, then I mean, go for it. I mean, you've got, you know, I'll stand by on the sidelines and I'll cheer you on with a flag. And, you know, I hope they come with something groundbreaking, something revolutionary, but I don't see it coming from the crypto community. I think it's got to come from the traditional, and I think it has to be traditional industry who are experts in that industry, in that niche, and they're going to have to adopt crypto into their world. I don't see how it could be the other way around. So, you know, the saving the planet thing, I mean, are you a blockchain developer or are you an ecologist? I mean, if you're both, awesome, brilliant. And if you can work together, then yeah, great. But it's not, crypto bros can't save the world. You know, it's, we need some traditional experts in these fields for sure.
Yeah, I love it, as you can tell. But so, all right, so based on that answer, what do you think the implementation strategy would be in order to successfully implement a solution that would save the planet with these protocols? I know you briefly touched on it, but you know, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that's a tricky one. So I think the traditional pillars are already in place. There's already people working on these, you know, solutions and trying to, you know, to greenify the planet and make it a better place. So I guess I kind of see it, if I have to kind of picture it in my mind, it's basically, it's like the tech is running along this railway, and then, you know, if we're talking about, you know, to make things simple, let's talk about bringing down global temperatures. So there are people working on that along this you know, linear path, and then there are people working on the tech on this side of the path. And at some point they're going to have to merge. But I think, yeah, I mean, how they're going to integrate it. I mean, like I said, I guess they're going to have to build the tools. The tech guys are going to have to build the tools, and then the people in the real world industries are going to have to see if they can adopt these tools to help with their mission. I guess what it's going to come down to.
Yeah. Yeah. And but the thing is, like I said, like you said, it's already there. But I think the bottleneck is the education piece. Yes, I might be biased, but I think it's the education piece where, the scientists and the real people that understand the problems, they don't understand, blockchain, So I think that, and I didn't really realize this until you actually explained it. So I think that, we always talk about, oh, we need to educate the onboard, we need to educate to get the wide adoption. But whenever we say educate, we're talking about educating people on setting up wallets and things like that. You make an excellent point in that we need to educate the scientists. We need to educate the academics on what the potential is for these certain blockchains, because like you said, they see blockchain as Ethereum and Bitcoin. No, there's hundreds of other blockchain layer ones, layer twos too, blockchains out there that are there for certain use cases. You got the VeChain, you got the Celos, you got the Algorand's that's looking to make a positive impact on the planet, Hedera Hashgraph, who are looking to focus on this sustainability aspect, but even us within the Web3 space, we can't keep up with them all. So I think that the education from the technology is going to be a step that I don't think that many people are actually looking at. There's too much going. Yes, there's a lot going on, not too much. There's a lot going on in this space, but I think that education needs to pay a closer look, needs to be taken at that if we're going to achieve what we're trying to achieve in a study like this, or in a study like the other interview you did with financial literacy.
No, absolutely. And again, I think the topic with the environment is I think, again, there has to be a consensus among the scientific community. We have to understand you can't solve the problem if you don't know what the problem is. So it's first thing, I do think we have to understand what the problem is, and then the best way to go forward with fixing it. But you might find this a bit interesting. This is something that really kind of blew me away with how education and academia is kind of intertwining with blockchain. Is I got to attend this absolutely brilliant conference. It was held in Germany. I dialed in remotely, and if I think like environmental stuff is over my head, this was from the medical community. So it was professors from different German universities. It was universities all over the world, but they were actually using and stuff like this will amaze me because I cover a lot of like video game crypto projects and like things that are fairly like low, highly entertaining, love them, but fairly low impact. And what this conference was all about is how geneticists are using the Ethereum blockchain. And I'm probably going to completely butcher this because this was all pretty high level stuff. And I'm sitting there trying to take notes, like a kindergartner scribbling with a crayon. But basically they were using blockchain technology in a way to globally collaborate on the study of genetic deformities in people. And the reason why, and one of the things is people are always like, well, why does it have to be on the blockchain? Just use a database. But they were using like ZK rollups and things in a way that basically what this allowed to do, because there's always doctor-client confidentiality. So you can't just share things globally. So basically they were studying genetic deformities and collaborating on it globally. And because they were using Ethereum blockchain technology, but basically it allowed all these different members of the scientific community to look at the same case study without exposing confidential information about the patients, and look at the history. And there are actually quite a few different use cases. And that was the first real eye-opener for me. And that was about a year ago. And that was the first real eye-opener for me. I was like, man, crypto's about more than just finance. Blockchain is about a lot more than just finance. And monkey pictures. It's making a fundamental impact on the medical community, and hopefully we'll see the greenhouse gas issue. So yeah, hopefully it'll solve all sorts of problems.
Yeah. And that's one thing I keep talking about from a supply chain perspective, where organizations don't want to show everything, across their supply chain networks, and I think that zero knowledge proofs are going to have a massive impact once organizations begin to adopt this solution. So that's all the questions that I had. I know this one went a little long, and I loved every minute of it. So Tayler, do you have anything else you want to share?
No, I'll get that info over to you. And yeah, we'll keep in touch. I'm really interested in the work you're doing and stuff. So I'm definitely gonna, give you a follow and bug you every couple of weeks, see what you're up to.
Absolutely. So where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so obviously at the Coin Bureau, you can find me there. I'm not very active on LinkedIn. I am on there, but I'm pretty active on Twitter, just at Tayler TBM, and that's Tayler with an E. So if you want to, I drop some ridiculous memes and hopefully some interesting crypto tidbits of information.
All right. Thank you.
Right,
Thank you
cool.
once again for coming on, and everyone else, until next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks.